Hello my friend, and welcome to this video. If you found this video, then on some level, you are ready to connect more clearly and more directly to your inner knowing. Now, your inner knowing is something more deep than confidence. Your inner knowing is the place within you that allows you to discern what is a choice that is going to be in alignment with the life you most want to live, and what is a choice that takes you further away from that path. Each of us has a unique inner knowing. We may have overlaps with other individuals or groups, but I perceive it is up to each of us to be the ultimate discerning factors in the choices we make in life. Now, there are some very straightforward, practical ways we can do this, and there are some deeper, more consciousness expanding ways we can do this, or rather be this. In this video, I'm going to share with you a few different perspectives, and if it feels really resonant, fun, and joyful for you to listen in, then I invite you to tune in. If on some level you feel you're not following along, or maybe your brain's working too hard, what I invite you to do is you can listen to this while you're walking or doing something else, because we're going to have a conversation in a very flow-based way. Flow-based conversations can sometimes hit our awareness at multiple levels. We can listen to something consciously, but we can also receive it on a fluid and unconscious level. And I'm going to invite you to engage your discernment as you tune into this video. And please go ahead and integrate the parts that are really helpful for you in your journey, and feel free to leave the rest. So, in that spirit, I'm Danielle Lynn. I really enjoy being a facilitator to anyone I connect with that enjoys to be connected with in this way. And part of what I do in this world is I really enjoy helping people remember how to reconnect with and re-engage with their true inner guidance, with their sense of empowerment, and remembering that they are alchemists as play. Alchemists as play. I was trying to say at play, but perhaps we are alchemists as play. I like that idea. That's a good one. So, as mentioned, in this video, let's go ahead and dive in to some of the ways that we can remember how to ground in and tap into our sense of true knowing. So first, let me share some of the ways that we experience life that may make it seem challenging to know our knowing. To be able to guide ourselves, it's helpful to know oneself. And in my experience, there's a bit of a paradox, because the elements of ourselves we might know might start at our preferences, the things we like, or our physical appearance, or what it is we're doing. But all these things can change. The things we like can change, what we're doing can change, and our physical appearance can change. So if all these things are changing, then what is actually fixed about us? Because I perceive a lot of us might identify who we are as what is fixed within us. But the paradox seems to be that everything around us, and even possibly within us, is constantly in a sense of change, right? I think there's a saying that the only constant is change. So if we are the embodiment of change, if we are the embodiment of the elements, of every single one of the elements, right? Water, fire, air, and earth. All of these elements, either slowly or quickly, changes. So then, what are you, ever-changing being? Some would say you're the consciousness, the awareness that is. I'm pointing right here. It's kind of like behind the eyes, so to speak. You are the consciousness that is experiencing everything happening in the now present moment. I would say that I have found in each moment I get to discover and uncover who I am through the consistent, iterative choices that I make, not through my mind, but through my way of being. The consistent choices that I embody through my way of being. While I don't attempt to fully pin myself down and say, this is what I am, I will also playfully declare, this is what I am, while also being open to being a little bit delightfully surprised. So, to that end, what I've suggested that people do, if you want to have a better perspective, if you want to have a more clear perspective of who you're mostly choosing to be in this present moment, is twofold. One, you can keep a journal by your bed. And in this journal, you can record when you wake up and when you go to sleep, your thoughts upon waking and your thoughts as you drift into sleep. The more honest we are with ourselves during these times, the more clear the reflection. And one of the things that has helped me with honesty is to continue to embody no shame, no blame, no guilt with myself. The willingness to operate in that way allows me to be more honest and reflective with myself. Because if I'm not shaming and blaming and judging myself for who I am being, then I can be more open and honest and authentic with myself. Now, this is a practice that I've embodied over the years. And no shame, no blame, no guilt if it's challenging for you to do that right now. Because for many years, it's been challenging for me to do that as well. And I continue to invite myself to more deeper, more clear levels of self-honesty. It's a practice very much like exercise, like physical exercise, right? It's not like, okay, I ran 1 mile today, so we're done running for the rest of our life. It's a continued willing embodiment to be reflective. Because if I were to decide to stop being curious and have a relationship with myself, then there may come a period of time where much time has passed and I've stopped engaging within, and then I might find myself in a new version of self, not having been in touch with it, and then not having that exploration happen. Just as if you stop exercising and you're like, well, I used to have muscles and now I don't have muscles. And this is what happens when perhaps we stop doing iterative things. Now, it doesn't mean that your internal exploration process of self has to be this overly obsessive, I gotta figure out who I am process. It's more of just a curious awareness, kind of like daily hygiene, the same way you are with your body. You can do daily introspective hygiene and simply be curious without judgment. Who am I being in each and every given moment? This is one of the ways that you can be clear and open with yourself. Now, in that spirit, something that I have done, something that I lead clients and workshops through, is then identifying your values. Now, I've spoken on this before in videos. Identifying our values isn't identifying the things that we are aiming for. It's not morals or what we aspire to be. In this case, I'm defining values as what we put continued focused energy towards, that we have designated consciously or unconsciously is of great importance to us. And we've designated it that way because we place our continuous focused energy and effort on it, not just mentally, but also the way that we live in our day-to-day lives. You get that? I can say it another way. Our values are the ways that we choose to live consistently. And again, no shame and no blame, no guilt. But a lot of us will sometimes feel a little confused about who we are because we may be living with habits or patterns that we perceive on some level as not ideal, but because we haven't shifted from those patterns or habits, we might try and conceal them, or we might try and self-forgive them on one side and then blame ourselves on the other. And this is sometimes how we can live in contradiction with ourselves. And sometimes why people don't want to look inside. Because then when you look inside, all that shame and that blame and that part of you that is in opposition to it might come out in full force. So one way people deal with it is to suppress it, or to try and override it, or make excuses for it. I have done this in previous iterations in my life. And I have found that it's not something I really engage with in regularity anymore, simply because I didn't enjoy the outcomes that come with it. Suppressing things for prolonged periods of time usually means they pop up in other ways unconsciously. And so now I find when I engage with them more consciously, not only am I bringing my awareness to them, and bringing awareness to it is like 90% of it. Bringing awareness to it without even needing to actively change it is like 90% of it. Because once you bring awareness to something, it's almost like shining a light. It's like being able to see is just really just shining a light. And when we're aware with something without judgment, like when it's within, whether it's within ourselves or outside of ourselves, transmutation begins. And this is why so much can happen simply by being aware. Now, that's not to say you don't ever have to do anything. But the doing no longer comes from a place of franticness or fear or trying to force an outcome. The doing now comes from a flow-based place. It comes from a place that is informed by your awareness, because you have chosen to shine the light on a particular situation or experience, or in this case, the self. And so change isn't something that is dogged or forced or pushed within you because you should be something else. Change is now inspired by the awareness of who you know yourself to be. And so therefore the action is all very natural. The action comes from a place of inner inspiration and mobility, because you are now consciously connected to who you truly are, and the resistance to who you are falls away. Now, I know I'm explaining this in a way that sounds, very fluid and magical, but sometimes in the beginning, this comes with a consistent commitment and dedication to revisiting this again and again and again with yourself. And at first that can feel like a lot of effort, just like exercise, right? In the beginning. Oh my gosh, I have to do this every day. I may have said that once or twice. But then you find that, at least I have found, when I was consistent with it, not only did it become more easeful, it is a part of my flow, and the naturalness that came from it, because I wasn't resisting so many parts of my life, I had so much more energy to naturally place into the actions that were actually in support of the way I wanted to live. And inspiration came more naturally to me. And if inspiration didn't come, then simply making a choice came more naturally to me. There was simply more of a willingness to embrace life as it comes. And challenges that popped up weren't so catastrophic feeling. They were simply something to experience in the moment as well. I'm going to pause there and invite a breath for all of us. And I want to reflect that, if you ever watch these videos and you're following along with your brain and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Again, you're invited to just almost listen in a sense of flow. Because if you're here, there is a greater part of you that is understanding this. There are valuable insights, downloads, reflections you're receiving from this. And sometimes when we receive insights like this, if they don't immediately hit the mind, they're still sitting within our consciousness. And at the resonant place, resonant time, resonant moment, as you digest it and integrate it, it really all comes together. As I'm saying this, a bumblebee is bumbling around. Literally bumbling, like it just kind of was like, coming through the undergrowth here. And so how does this tie back all together with embodying our true selves, with embodying these elements of self? Well, I highlighted both witnessing one's values. And in this case, all right, we talked about how to be able to see self and what values might be the places you place focus on. What I have done with my values is I'll list them out. I'll list out what I focus on. I'll list out also what I would like, what I consciously perceived I'd like my values to be. But then I also write out what I place my focus on. Things that I value. Like, I found that I value just sitting and staring off into space, into forest, into the greenery, having times when I have no thought, when I'm just meandering, when I'm looking at flowers or slugs or bugs. And in the past, I used to condemn myself for that. Oh, you could be doing much more productive things. Until one day, the understanding came to me that that is productive for me. Part of the joy of my life is to be that way. And that I realized it was an important thing to cultivate space for myself with. And it became one of my values, that the life that I choose to live includes my magical meandering time. And you may have the equivalent of a magical meandering time, whatever that looks like for you. Perhaps something that on some level you may have not given yourself. Perhaps people have, maybe you would feel, oh, that's too childish, or maybe someone shamed you for it once or twice or 20 million times, or perhaps there's a sense that you might not be allowed to do that for some reason or another. And I invite you, as you are exploring your values, to give yourself permission to be just completely honest with yourself about what you would like, without the shame or blame, no matter how seemingly childish or outlandish it might seem to want those things. This is your opportunity to be honest with yourself. And when we're honest with ourselves and we give ourselves permission to see that, we also give ourselves space for it to actualize in our reality. And it's audacious to do that. It begins with the awareness. And so these are some of the elements to know oneself and to be able to be in knowing. Simply being aware, and we can define it even being a step further, being aware of what we truly focus on or value, gives us great insight as to what consciously and unconsciously drives our decisions, our actions, and our behaviors. And I feel that that is full for this video today. This is a wonderful place for us to pause. And if you have any thoughts or questions, you have any insights that popped up during this video, do you find that there's something you focus on you want to share, then please go ahead and share in the comments. We will look at them together. And if there's anything you'd like to transmute, feel free to share it in the comments. We will look at that together. If you would like to explore further resources, I'll post them in the description. I'm in such appreciation of you and of us. And thank you for having this conversation. If it has been of service, please do like and subscribe and all those things that are fun and joyful for this to continue to connect with you and those who it will serve the most. I look forward to our next connection together.